Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us this Sunday evening. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I hope you enjoy this. This is Group Ancestral Healing, and I've had a lot of experience with dealing with karma lately, and I'd like to share with you my tidbits of wisdom. And so the structure of this evening will be lecture and a brief break followed by a meditation. Linda, how much time do we have? Do we have 90 minutes or is this scheduled for 2 hours?
It's 2 hours total. So you have an hour for lecture, an hour for meditation.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So there will be opportunities for question and answering. I think we can probably hold off on that until the end of the lecture. And then, of course, we can have questions and answers and sharing of experiences after the meditation. If you would like to use your own music during the meditation part, please feel free to do so. You just keep yourself muted and you can play music, whatever music you'd like, if you like music with meditation. Let's see, if anyone has difficulty with me using the terms God, source, angels, spirit, if you could please private message me as soon as you can on the chat, just so I can try to change my wording. Hey, Brianna. Also, while I'm giving the lecture, try to think about what you need work on. So on what specific issue do you need healing work, specifically on karma? What do you think's been passed down to you from your family? Might be a few things, and you want to have a notebook and a pen handy for journaling. While I'm doing the lecture is pretty much what you have on your handout, so there shouldn't be a need to take copious notes. But you might be thinking of things and stuff will pop into your head and you may want to jot that down. During the meditation, you will hopefully have experiences that you want to try to ground and record for review later. So a journal would be great for that. And like I said, we'll take a short break after the lecture component. So I guess we'll get right into it. So once again, thank you for joining us. This is Group Ancestral Healing, clearing out the baggage that we all carry. And some of us carry more baggage than others. But so do you think that you've inherited anything from your parents, any physical issues, emotional issues? And probably most of us have. Have they inherited those issues from their parents? So it's likely, according to Stephen Farmer anyway, it's likely that any physical, mental, or emotional issue that currently troubles you or you currently experience has been experienced by your parents, your grandparents, or your great-grandparents. And how many generations have carried these issues? So in this mini class, we have about 2 hours. You'll learn how to connect with your ancestors to tap into their collective wisdom. You'll learn how to clear inherited negative karma, and you'll learn to resolve inherited traits passed down from generation to generation. Part of that's forgiveness, so that's a very powerful ceremony. So when you clear this inherited karma, you heal your ancestors, yourself, and your descendants. So you're preventing those traits from being passed down further. So the buck stops here. That's excellent. And you also heal your ancestors all the way back to the first one that ever experienced it. So that's quite a gift. So as you heal yourself, you heal others, and we're talking about your entire line, all the ancestors before you, all your progeny and descendants after you. Even if you don't have children, you have cousins, you have nephews, nieces, so we work on all of them. So let's set some intentions for this session then, okay? So shamanic work, angel healing, energy work in general is meant to be done with joy. So oftentimes we take ourselves way too seriously. So instead, open your heart, connect your brain to your heart so that we can move the ego aside. Greg Braden talks about the heart math people and how when you connect your heart to your brain, you can speak the language of the divine. In this case, we're speaking the language of our ancestors, we're speaking the language of angels, and any beings that you want to bring in to help us with this work. And if you don't do that, the ego can get in the way. Of course, the ego likes to control, and the conscious brain is where the ego is king. This is where we judge and we dismiss messages that we receive from our ancestors, and we filter them. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to put the fun back in function before we get into too much dysfunction. So we want to avoid dysfunction. Another important intention is to reconnect with our ancestors. Just because they're no longer physically here with us doesn't mean they're irrelevant. It doesn't mean that we can't talk to them or contact them. So we should treat our ancestors like we treat angels. So ancestors are also beings of light who truly want to help us, and we can learn from their collective wisdom, their experiences here on Earth. Similarly, like the angels, we need to ask them for help. So like the angels, our ancestors can infringe on our free will, and most likely, like angels, they're standing right next to us, just waiting for that, okay, I need help, and then they can jump in and help us. So we must call in our ancestors to gain from their experiences, to gain from their wisdom. Otherwise, like the angels, they have to sit and wait for us to ask. So our society and our ego teach us that we're individuals. We learn to feel disconnected from source and from each other as young as early as when we can comprehend language. So we become disconnected from our ancestors through programming and that type of learning. So out of sight should not mean out of mind. So we need to embrace them and ask them and bring them in to help us. It's obviously easiest to heal them if they're with us and helping us. So why do our ancestors need healing? At the time of their death, our ancestors may not have resolved their specific physical, emotional, energetic, or karmic issues. So they carried the baggage, they didn't resolve it, and then here you go, they passed it down to you. So if that's the case, and our ancestors carried or will carry that baggage with them into their next incarnation, if you believe that that's where they're headed. Some cultures, like the Chinese, believe that any issues that are not resolved are passed down to our children. So if their children cannot resolve their issues, then those issues are passed down to their children, and so on and so on. And in fact, they call those issues demons. So what are the benefits from ancestral healing? Ancestral healing reconnects us with our ancestors to help us remove the illusion of separation. So we're not separated, we are all one, and we'll get a piece of that in the meditation. Reconnecting with our ancestors enables us to tap into their collective wisdom, their healing skills, and just making us realize that, yes, we are all one. We're part of all that there is. Ancestral healing not only heals you with your specific issue, but all your ancestors and descendants. We already mentioned that. Ancestral healing also affects the entire world, locally and distantly. So what's that cliche? Think globally, act locally. I think that was a recycling commercial on TV years ago. It's so true. And per the concepts of quantum mechanics, time and space are an illusion. So as we're working on ourselves, we're also working on the entire planet. So what a gift it is to be a healer. So when I talk about dimensions and the ancestors aren't here, they're not here with us physically, then where are they? So the concept of dimension refers to positioning simultaneously in time and space. So currently we live in the third dimension. So the third dimension refers to an upgrade from the first and second dimensions. And the third dimension is characterized by polarity or duality. Everyone that lives in the third dimension has volume. You know, we have height and width and length, depth, as it were, and We also have the concept of duality, male and female, left and right sides of the body, up and down, good and evil, or positive and negative. Binary concepts like 0 and 1, yes and no, yin and yang, active and passive. You get the idea. So it is here in the third dimension that we have to make a conscious choice between a life of positive versus negative, or good versus evil. That's why we have that veil of forgetting. That's why we're born and we totally forget why we're here. And in that way, we're able to make a conscious choice, an unbiased choice. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this. And we don't really have time to get into that into great depth, but I truly believe in that. You know, we're here on a mission. And if you're on this call tonight, if you're on this session with me, it's likely that you're also a healer, or at least interested in healing. And so you're in the service to others group, and welcome. We need you. So any way I can help you with that sacred contract, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you, just as much as you're here to help me. So the fourth dimension is where, when beings pass and they're not able to go into the light, they kind of hang around. And there's a number of reasons why they hang around. And Stephen Farmer goes into this in his book, Healing Ancestral Karma. He goes into why some beings feel stuck and can't move into the light. So if you're Catholic, you'd consider the fourth dimension to be purgatory. So fourth dimension beings are just out of our view, although that veil is coming down. As we move into the fourth dimension, we will be able to see them and feel them and talk to them, and or at least have a better knowledge of their existence and better able to connect with them. But they lack volume like third dimensional beings. That's why we can't see them. So, and typically beings in the fourth dimension are smarter than us. They've been around longer than we have, and they have an agenda, which may or may not be in line with our agenda. So it's like getting on the Ouija board and trying to contact, you know, you're doing the things moving around. You're like, oh, this is cool. And you're getting a message. Well, that message may or may not be good for you. So I'd caution you on things like Ouija board and tarot. You want to make sure that you create a sacred space and only bring in beings that are of the light and beings in your highest and best interest. That's what we're going to do in the meditation. We'll set that up. We'll create a sacred space. If you create a sacred space, perhaps the Ouija board might actually be educational. But okay, so then where are we going? We're going to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is known for equality. It's the age of Aquarius. Suffering and polarity no longer exist. So those are the higher dimensions where we find ascended masters, angels of God. So fifth dimension is kind of the way station to those higher dimensions, where we could describe as heaven. So when we call in beings, are they really our ancestors, or are they really the spirit guides that we called in? You need to use discernment. So discernment is trusting your gut. So you call in your spirit guides, your Reiki guides, or whatever modality, healing modality you use, your ancestors. You call these beings in. How do you know they're good for you? Well, as you interact with them, you get a feeling. It's like when you meet someone for the first time, within seconds, you know if you can trust them or not. You get a gut feeling, and that's discernment, and trust it. If you get a bad feeling about the individual or the being that you've called in, you really need to get rid of them, dismiss them, and they have to go. They can't overcome your free will. So I'm not talking about the information that they give you per se. They may give you an answer that you don't want to hear. That may not make you feel good, but if the being that you interact with is making you feel bad, you must tell them to go, and they have to go. So what issues do we frequently encounter being passed down from generation to generation? Usually physical pain, physical issues. And then you have to consider, are we victims of our genetic lineage? So if you've ever been to school, you know that evolution is king. We learn all about Darwin. And so nature versus nurture has always been a controversy in science. So when I was in school, and I've had a lot of school, I've been blessed. I was taught that nature is more important than nurture. And the nature argument was firmly rooted in Darwin's theories of evolution. And his book on the origin of the species was published in 1859. And 100 years later was generally the consensus of how educators should teach science. But in the early 2000s, epigenetics became popular, and books like Bruce Lipton's The Biology of Belief has become a bestseller, and people are now knowledgeable about the concept of epigenetics. So epigenetics just refers to the concept that you're not a victim of your genetic lineage. Just because your parents and your grandparents had issues doesn't mean that you have it. You will have it if you believe you will have it. So intention is huge. So here's an example. So my maternal ancestors all had rheumatoid arthritis. All of the ones that I know. So rheumatoid arthritis is a chronic inflammatory and autoimmune disease where the body attacks itself and eats up your joints. It's really kind of awful. And rheumatoid was passed down from my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother, to my grandmother, to my mother, and her sister actually. So basically, all the females on my mother's line have had rheumatoid arthritis, and I don't know if you've seen it, but RA can be very debilitating. I watched it ravage my great grandmother's body, and yes, I knew her. She was in her 90s when she passed, so I did know her. I just remember the house smelling like was menthol and different rubs that you could put on, and those tend to be kind of stinky. That she'd use that for the pain. My grandmother had issues. She had bad knees. My mom had rheumatoid arthritis in her spine and had multiple surgeries, joint replacements. So looking at that, one could just kind of get sucked into the concept that, ooh, I'm stuck. Like, I'm going to get rheumatoid because everybody's on my mother's side has had it. It does look very heritable, but I don't have it. I have a twin brother. He doesn't have it as far as I know. And I'm unaware of any maternal cousins that do. So what's the disconnect? How do you stop the buck from being passed to me? I don't believe that I have RA. I don't believe I ever will have RA. I do believe in epigenetics. I don't fully believe, I don't think there is something to evolution. There is evolution that happens, but I don't think it's the only story. So epigenetics seems pretty real to me, and contrary to my many years of school, I buy it. So let's not forget other issues too that can be passed down. Well, other causes of issues that can be passed down, like nutrition, for instance. I don't eat foods that can cause an inflammation. Like I don't eat gluten, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat processed foods. Therefore, I don't have a lifestyle that could lead to RA. That makes sense, doesn't it? So according to Louise Hay in her book, Heal Your Body, the energetic cause for rheumatoid arthritis is a deep criticism of authority, feeling very put upon. Yeah, after 12 years of Catholic school, I could have a deep criticism of authority and feel very put upon. But yeah, the nuns were tough. But I also did learn structure. I learned discipline. So it's all how you mentally process and assimilate and accept, allow things that have happened to you or experiences that you've had. You could embrace these potentially negative experiences as positive, a catalyst for learning, excuse me, or they can bother you and develop into disease. But still, my ancestors nevertheless carried these issues. So they still, even though I don't buy it, and it's not me, they still carry the physical, emotional, and energetic negativity of those disease issues, and they pass it on. So even though I don't have RA, I still have to deal with all the stuff coming down, physically, mentally, emotionally, karmic. It's still passed down to some degree. So since they didn't learn their lessons needed to resolve that disease issue, the karmic burden passes to all of their progeny, and here we are. So I still need to heal it. I hope that makes sense. So this issue still requires ancestral healing, despite the fact that it's not my physicality. It's not in my physicality, but it's still emotional, energetic, karmic. Yep. And so I have to intend to stop it and heal it. So you might be thinking, okay, what issue should I pick when we work on ancestral healing tonight? Whatever you got it to work with at this moment would be the best one. So hopefully you're coming into this session with, I want to work on, A, B, or C. Keep in mind that there are probably many issues that have been passed down. So don't worry about which one's the most important. Just done is better than perfect. Pick one, work on it, and enjoy the experience. The most important thing is just to pick something, and we'll go with that. So what is group ancestral healing? Ancestral healing is the healing of your ancestors and the physical, emotional, mental, energetic, and karmic issues that they pass down to you. The effects of this healing are significantly enhanced or exponential, amplified in a group setting. So group ancestral healing is much more powerful because the group enhances it. It's all about you. It's all about you guys. So immediately prior to the healing session, you need to set an intention to heal all of your ancestors, whether biological or not, as well as all of your descendants that come after you, whether or not you have children. And you can also intend to correct your DNA, your ancestors' DNA, your descendants' DNA, because a lot of the stuff is passed down to DNA. So that's the science behind it. How does it get to you? It's in the DNA. So here's an example. It's not in the handout. So I don't know if you've ever heard about experiments done on mice. So you put a mouse in a little maze, and at the end of the maze is cheese. And over time, the mouse gets smarter and gets quicker. Well, the descendants of that mouse that got better retain those improvements. So not only is the mouse that runs that course better, that mouse's descendants are also better, and they continue to get better and better and better. So that's an amazing find. I don't know if that makes sense. The progeny of the individual retains a lot of the improvements, a lot of the learning, a lot of the, so therefore a lot of the trauma, a lot of the experiences. And it's maintained in the cells and therefore in the DNA. So that's how it's passed down. So that's an important piece. So keep in mind that it's okay if you don't know the ancestor that you're going to heal. Perhaps your great-grandparents passed down issues, or your grandparents, and maybe you don't know, maybe you don't even know your parents, maybe you're adopted. That's totally okay. Energy follows intention. So you want to set the intention that you will heal the ancestor that is appropriate to receive the healing. Your healing intentions and actions is a gift that will forever positively affect all those individuals that you intended to heal. So it's a gift for you. It's a gift for, as I mentioned before, it's a gift for the entire planet. So by inviting these ancestors into the session, you gain access to them to ask their permission for healing and to pass that healing and permission onto all those other ancestors and progeny that came before you and come after you, eventually healing the entire human race. So that is a gift. I consider that a huge gift. So the healing acts like a ripple effect when you drop a pebble into a pond and the ripples spread out, kind of fractal, it expands out and out and out. The ripples of water are far reaching and potentially affecting all the areas of the pond. So what we do here tonight can be very far reaching. So just kind of take a second to visualize that. Visualize dropping a pebble into a pond and ripples come out. and they go on and on and on and on. That's what we're going to do here tonight. So
Peter, can I just jump in for a second and just see, Peter's been sharing a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Really quiet group.
have I put you to sleep? I don't hear any snoring, but everyone's muted, so okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Carry on.
So it's always best to ask permission of any being that you intend to heal, since they also have free will and have the right to refuse. So according to Dr. Farmer, Stephen Farmer, if you have had significant issues with the ancestor chosen for healing, it is important to forgive them of these issues in order to avoid any lingering negative feelings towards this person, because those negative feelings, that lack of forgiveness, can block the healing. We don't want that. So forgiveness is a high vibration feeling that will heal you and your ancestor, and it avoids any unnecessary blockages to this process. It is also important to forgive yourself for allowing these issues to occur and linger between you and your ancestors and your progeny. So it's also important not to force the forgiveness. You want to feel it. You want to be forgiving. It's not enough to put on a happy face and just go through the motions. You really want to feel forgiving and feel the benefits of the healing. So, because we're letting go of a lot of baggage and we don't need it. So there has to be some forgiveness there, forgiveness on your part and forgiveness on their part. They have to forgive you. You have to forgive them. If they're not very forgiving, you'll have to forgive for the both of you. So if you're unable to forgive someone for something at some level, do you feel like, are you keeping that trauma? Is that hurt being kept by you as a trophy? And look what happened to me. I'm not going to forget. Well, we're not asking you to forget. We're asking you to forgive and, to move on. Just so you're not a prisoner of your own making. Because Buddy Hackett is a famous, okay, I'm dating myself here. Buddy Hackett's a famous comedian back in the 70s, and he was in the Love Bug movies, the movies about the Volkswagen bug that was alive. I don't know if you remember those movies. And Buddy Hackett has a famous quote. He says, "Grudges? I don't hold grudges. Well, I hold grudges. They're out dancing." So keep that in mind. Hanging on to this stuff is just, that is the baggage you don't need to carry. Holding grudges, holding the trauma, just let it go. Because it's totally unnecessary and it's also self-destructive. And it's an illusion. The grudge doesn't hurt the other person, it only hurts you. So how do we do this? Group ancestral healing consists of the following steps. You're going to create a sacred space. We will do that together. You call in your ancestors, and the ancestors that come in are only aligned with light and have your highest and best interests. So they can't be negative entities. They can't be, so the bad guys can't get in. I'm not saying your ancestors are. There could be beings that try to come in that really aren't who you think they are. Those entities will be excluded. And we also have to set a healing intention. We have to be specific. You want a crystal clear concept of what you want to heal. And with that, the correct ancestor that needs the healing will come before you. So be specific and allow the ancestors or healing guides to guide you. We're going to be participating in healing ceremonies. So one ceremony is a forgiveness ceremony. I'm not going to announce it. We're just going to go through them all. So Alberto Bioldo wrote Grow a New Body. He's a shaman from Chile, best-selling author, researcher on the brain and the gut. He's from his shamanic background. He teaches us that human beings change from ceremony. That's why you get married. That you're announcing to the world that I choose this person to be my one and only for the rest of our lives. And that changes how you think, changes how other people think as well. Everyone knows that you're married. So that's a ceremony. That's a good example of a ceremony where it changes how you think. And if you change how you think, then you change who you are. And if you change who you are, things heal, and that's where the magic happens. So to finish the meditation, we're going to thank and release our guides, our ancestors. We're going to release the ancestors and release the baggage. We're going to let the baggage, and them go. We don't lose contact with them. We just, we're done with what we need to do. We let them go. So in doing this, go ahead.
Can I jump into the question there about intentions? And I know a lot about setting intentions, but I'm thinking for myself, for this workshop tonight, there's actually a really specific interpersonal conflict I have going on with someone I love deeply, but we have a conflict going on. Is even though that seems really specific to the here and now between me and this one person, can you see that as relating back to an ancestral type wound?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So really good question. So if you have that conflict with someone else in your family, how many generations have had a similar conflict? And all families fight. All families have that interrelational dynamic where that person so well, it's easy for you to punch their buttons and for them to punch your buttons. So for that specific issue that you have in mind, you don't have to tell us, but how many generations back does that go? It's unlikely that it's just you and that person. It goes back. So if you feel like you can't forgive yourself or forgive them, then maybe pick a different thing to work on. But if you feel like you can embrace that other person and you can forgive that, or at least try, then I would recommend working on it.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. And it's, I'll tell you more about it off the record or off camera later. Yes, thank you.
Sounds good. Because it may need further work, after tonight.
Sure.
So I'll give away some of the secret sauce. So part of the forgiveness ceremony is you will sit in the energy of the ancestor. So you're going to sit in a chair and you move and sit in their chair while they're there energetically, and you become that other ancestor. So the two of you are one. That you feel what they feel, what they know. It's very powerful. And it can be very uncomfortable. So if the discomfort is if you envision that the discomfort is so much that you can't handle that, maybe pick a different topic. Because we're not trying to, it's like trying to overcome fear. We have many fears. Probably the worst fears aren't going to be dealt with tonight, per se. Don't pick the worst one, because this is an hour meditation, and pick the one that you think you have the best. Well, you don't want to judge it either. Whatever comes to you, go with that. And if you think you can't overcome the issue with that regarding forgiveness, if you can't forgive your ancestor, then don't work with it. Choose something else. And I hope that's good advice.
Thank you, Peter. And so let me just pause. Is anyone else kind of thinking through what they might have for an intention, have questions about it? I know people probably don't want to be too revealing about what their issues are, but anything you want to ask Peter to just help crystallize what your healing intention might be for tonight?
So I'm a little curious about physical structural healing. This is Sandra Grace, sorry. I'm a little curious about physical structural healing, like epigenetics regarding like mental, emotional, but also how that manifests into physical structural, like how fear creates dis-ease or lack of ease in the body. So I'm a little curious about that end of it.
Wow, that's a really good question. So I can try to touch on that. So recent information to suggest that emotions like fear, any negative emotion, even positive emotions, are generated by the bacteria in the gut. Those bacteria that reside in the GI tract. and there's 30 feet of GI tract from the mouth to the rectum. So there's plenty of bugs in there, and those bugs generate our emotions. And you've heard the term trust your gut. We've been saying trust your gut probably for centuries, but the science wasn't there. Now we know why. So the very bugs that are in your GI tract create, from whatever they do, whatever respiration, living, dying, breathing, whatever they do, we experience emotions from their activity. And so hence the gut is called the second brain. So that in of itself is very structural and physical. So you can see how antibiotics and probiotics and things like that, there can be kind of a tug of war of good bugs versus bad bugs and stuff like that. But also there's energetics. So if you have trauma, it's housed in the cell, but it's also housed externally in your aura. So my concept of how the brain works, did you ever go to the library? People that are old enough to understand this, you went to the library to find a book, you go to the card catalog, right? And you pull out the card catalog and you go flip, 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 and you find the title of the book. Oh, here it is. And there's a Dewey Decimal address associated with that book. And then the hardest part is finding where that is in the stack of, I don't know how many stacks in the library, right? So once you have the card, you can track down the book because you have the address. That's how the brain works. In my head, this is what I think. We don't necessarily house I mean, sure that there's memories and experiences and things like that housed in the brain, but we don't necessarily have the capacity to access that. We do very easily have the capacity to access information that's housed in the aura. And the brain is the card catalog of where that trauma, where that knowledge, where that experience is housed in our aura. That's how I think of it. So that's physical and energetic. So Sandra, am I answering the question?
Yeah, so we're working with the subconscious and the superconscious in the healing tonight.
We are, so it's a ceremony and it changes how you think. So it is working with the entire nervous system. It's the whole body. This is all or nothing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for teaching this class tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So great questions. Does anybody else have a question? We have a few minutes. I'm almost done with the lecture.
I have a question, Peter.
Okay. Is that Katie?
It's Kate. Yeah, it's Katie. I'm going to try tackling the health issues. And there's multiple. So can I just focus on can I just ask for all of them, or do I have to be specific?
I think the best way to get the biggest win is to make it as laser focused as possible. So okay. Even I mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, that is also a very large issue because it attacks multiple joints. It's inflammatory, it's autoimmune. So if I were to work on RA, I think this is just an example of trying to answer your question. If I were to work on RA for me, I think I'd target, I've been having some problems with my left knee. So I would think I'd go back to who in my family has had left knee issues, and I have many. So the issue with going into RA is where I have multiple ancestors that have that issue. We need to focus it down to one ancestor. We're going to be working with one ancestor. I can't have all those ancestors in with me. I'm just going to target RA, or I'm just going to target left knee issue. I have left knee pain, left knee problems. I want to fix that. That's what I'm going to focus on, and just keep it very specific to one joint, one problem. Because rheumatoid arthritis is, as I mentioned, it's too big. So if you're going for a multitude of different physical issues at one time, it may not result in the outcome that you're looking for. So I'd focus on one very, very specific thing to get that win that you're looking for tonight.
Okay, thanks.
These are really good questions. Anyone else? Okay, so excellent. So some of the upgrades that we've done with this since we started doing it, I've added Ho'oponopono. And Ho'oponopono is a forgiveness and confession ritual from Hawaii. It's been popularized by teachers like Dr. Joe Vitale, who was on The Secret. And he's all about Ho'oponopono. And in fact, he co-authored a book with his teacher, Dr. Hu Len. And the title of the book is Zero Limits. Don't worry about the reference. It's in your handout. You don't have to write it down. But they elaborate on the practice of Ho'oponopono and how it works. So not only is it difficult to pronounce, it's also difficult to spell, but it is correct in your handout. So Ho'oponopono translates to correction in English. And it's an excellent method of reconciliation in relationships, especially family relationships. So I felt a need to go a little further into forgiveness, and because it was so difficult, especially when you're working with family. So I feel that Ho'oponopono fits well into group ancestral healing, and it can be simply a powerful way to release, help you release the unhappiness and the trauma, and also to get through to that forgiveness, that real forgiveness, to be forgiving. It's so hard. So as you know, if you know Ho'oponopono, it's very simple, but very powerful. So words have power, and we're going to use these words to our benefit. So the healing ritual of Ho'oponopono consists of 4 powerful statements that are repeated to increase their effects. So it goes, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And just at face value, you hear those and you just know, they're good. So like I said, words have power. Words backed with intention and feeling have amazing power. So Ho'oponopono is simple, yet very powerful. So that's the end of the lecture. We have a few minutes before we'd have to take a break. If you have any questions.
I'm assuming that right after we're done, that we'll be done. We'll go from the meditation to the end. And so maybe this is a preemptive question, and if it's an appropriate timing, we can pass it later. But I'm just a little bit more curious about, I'm absolutely impressed and intrigued by your training and all that you're sharing tonight. And I was just a little bit curious about your journey to all of this information. Maybe it's not a good time to explain it, but I'd like to know a little bit more about how you came to know and study all these things. And it would be interesting to me to know just a little bit more about that if we have just a minute, if we have some free time.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And thanks for asking that, because I think it's relevant to the class. And so I'm a physical therapist. I get interested in physical therapy because I had a fractured spine while I was playing street hockey in high school. It was just a simple pickup street hockey game out in the parking lot out front in school. And I wound up, and I really wanted that goal, and somebody got in my way, and the puck popped up and I was about to take out my left eye. So I twisted quickly and ferociously, and wow, I broke my back. So so now you have a dilemma. Is this the worst thing that's ever happened to me? And do I carry this around like, oh, I broke my back and I have back pain, and I could carry that around like a trophy, like, oh, poor me. And I in my head, I feel like that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be here right now with you if that never happened. So I can't lie that the pain was gruesome. It was a tough experience, and it just kind of got me into my healing journey. My neighbor was a physical therapist, and I just had to push through the shrubs that separated our yards. And he had his practice in his basement, and he's been my inspiration. And I always knew that I wanted to be a healthcare provider. I just wasn't sure what that would look like. And he inspired me to become a PT, because the PT listens, and they tailor the experience that you have. It's always a one-on-one experience, and it's tailored to you and your issues. And I just like that out of all other healthcare that I accessed, that was the best for me. Of course, I broke my back, so I needed surgery, and I didn't really, because I had a broken back, I really didn't think becoming a surgeon would be all that easy for me, because I don't like standing still, and you know, broken back doesn't really facilitate that. So that just kind of put me on my healing journey. And as a physical therapist, I was blessed to get my patients better quicker. But there were many that would get 80% better, or 90% better, 70% better, and then they just wouldn't get better after that. And maybe it sounds like ego, but I started to wonder, what is that 10, 20, 30% that I can't get them? And again, it wasn't me. I don't fix people. I feel like healing is a journey where we're kind of arm in arm. We're like friends, and we're walking down the same path together. You help me heal, I help you heal. I don't fix people, because there's something that I need to hear from them, and there's something that they need to hear from me. And so I became introduced to Reiki back in 2008. And in PT school, we learned that, oh, that stuff is voodoo, right? Don't do that. So I had to overcome that mindset. And I was really impressed with the energy work, and that got the last bit. So I realized that patients have physical, emotional, mental, energetic, karmic issues. You have to work on all of that. Otherwise, you don't heal the whole client. That there's something missing, or maybe someone else needs to come in and do a different piece. Maybe one person can't help that client heal. It might be a collaborative thing. But so when you go to physical therapy and you don't get better, your issue isn't very physical. You know, it's more emotional, karmic, energetic. You know, PTs work a little bit with psychology. You know, surgeons are very physical. So if you had a surgery that wasn't successful, your issue really wasn't physical, and someone else has to help you heal that. So that's how I think. And I'm a voracious learner. I love to take classes. I have been blessed with a great education. I have 2 bachelor's and master's of doctorate. I'm very well trained scientifically, but I embrace Western and Eastern traditions. I think you need both to heal the client, and having one without the other, well, you can have a good outcome. Like, is 80% a good outcome? I'd rather have 100% healing. It sounds like ego. It's not me. You want to do the best you can for your clients. So I learn. I've learned all kinds of things like Reiki and Melchizedek method, magnified healing. I use all of those modalities on the client for their benefit. And of course, I'm still a PT, and I always work. So I always work on structure. I always work on. I can't help it. You know, if somebody comes to me for Reiki, I'm still looking at, you know, is the spine out of alignment, or are they limping in? And I always wear the PT hat. So I hope that answers the question, Sandra. I hope that was helpful.
It was beautiful. Thank you. It helped us to get some additional insight. Thank you for your time, Peter.
Okay, so we have a couple of minutes before I end the recording. If there's any other questions.
And we did have 1 or 2 people join kind of late. So I just wanted to let people know that Peter has been recording this, and he can make the recording, I believe. So you tell me what you're going to do with the recording after, Peter.
Mm-hmm. I typically upload it to YouTube, and then that's where it's permanently housed, and I can give you the link for that. I can email it to you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to stop the recording, and if there are any other questions, we can continue to entertain those, and then we'll take a few minutes break